Hello there, and you are very welcome to Talking Saints, the official St. Patrick's Athletic podcast with myself, Jamie Moore. And I'm very happy to welcome a man who has played his football for UCD, Sporting Fingal, Shelbourne and Glenavon, among others. But he's best known for his time in the famous red and white of St. Patrick's Athletic, where he scored 77 goals in 251 games across 6 seasons. He's won it all: the League of Ireland Premier Division, the League of Ireland First Division, a couple of FAI Cups with different clubs, League Cups, the President's Cup, the FAI Cup, and most recently, I've learned the Mid-Ulster Cup. Loads of personal accolades too. And he announced his retirement recently from professional football, but still playing locally and getting ready for a game tonight. Myself and Conan Byrne are chatting on Monday. Conan, welcome to Talking Saints. How are you?
I'm not too bad, Jamie. How's things?
Yeah, things very good. Thank you. Not bad at all. Thanks for jumping on to have a chat with us. So, first,
thanks for having me.
You might talk us through, and the St. Pat supporters listening or watching the podcast on our YouTube channel, why you took the decision to retire from professional football recently.
Yeah, look, I was hemming and hawing about whether to do it 18 months ago, being totally honest. Before Glenavon came in, I had a couple of offers south of the border. And nowadays, Jamie, though, as you probably know yourself, I don't know if the supporters know this, but even part-time clubs are training 3-4 nights a week. And with me obviously being a teacher, father of 2 young children as well, I just felt that was just too much of a commitment to give. But when the opportunity came up to try something new up in Glenavon, I said, why not? You know, I only had to go up on a Tuesday and a match on a Saturday. So I'd be around a lot more. And I decided to why not try that challenge for a change. And yeah, it went really well. Really enjoyed it. Obviously, COVID hit. But apart from a couple of months, we played through all that. And yeah, it was a wonderful experience. Met some wonderful people. Brilliant club in Glenavon as well. And yeah, they're going to push on next year and do really, really well, I'm sure.
Yeah, you announced your retirement at the end of April and you played your last game a couple of weeks later. And, you know, you had probably some time to speak to, you know, your wife and your kids and your mum and dad and stuff at the time you were making the decision. So how have you found the time since, from when you played that last game up north to kind of now, and you've had a couple of weeks to reflect, unwind, and then get going, of course, for your amateur career now with your local side, River Valley, isn't it?
Yeah, River Valley. Yeah, you know what, Jamie? I thought it'd be I don't know, probably more difficult. And maybe it just hasn't hit me yet. Like, I suppose with COVID as well, playing behind closed doors in games over the last year and a half, over last year anyway, year and a bit, it's kind of made it easier. Because it's kind of the transition from that level into junior football has been seamless. Because of being playing in front of similar crowds. I'll be honest with you, I suppose leaving the League of Ireland has probably 18 months ago has helped that. If I had just stopped then, I think I would have found it a lot more difficult than I do now. But perhaps it just hasn't hit me yet. I don't know. It's only been a couple of weeks, I know, but a lot of things have happened. Obviously, I was coming to the end of my school year. I literally played my last game for Glenavon on a Saturday and went up training with River Valley on a Tuesday. And so I didn't give myself any time to reflect. I'm still really much involved in the League of Ireland with the podcast that I do with Pundit Arena and Con. So I'm kind of still active. It's not as if I've taken a complete backseat in things and that I'm not involved in anything. I think if that was the case, it would be a lot harder. But so yeah, I do need to stay involved though. I think if I had to pull back and stop playing football, I would have found it very difficult, because I love football, Jamie. I've always loved football. And God help me when the day I will have to stop playing. But as long as I can, I feel for my mental state, I have to.
Yeah, as you mentioned, I was just listening to your podcast this morning, yourself and Con speaking to Mark Scanlon. It's called LOI Arena and it's on Spotify and also on the Pundit Arena website. So anyone's not aware of it, go and give it a listen. A brilliant League of Ireland podcast. And we'll be seeing Conan quite soon as well on the sidelines of Richmond with myself and Gerard O'Brien for LOI TV for one of the upcoming games as well. So that'll be nice to have you back in Richmond. And let's talk about your time at St. Pat's, Conan. 6 seasons, and the St. Pat's fans are really looking forward to it. I know hearing you tell the story of your career with St. Pat's. 77 goals, I mentioned, 61 of those in the league. You signed at the beginning of the 2013 season, which was the season that St. Pat's won the league, and then the FAI Cup the year later and so on. But my spies tell me that you could have possibly signed a year earlier, and the current St. Pat's manager, Alan Matthews, who was then the manager of Shells, and Liam Buckley, who was your manager for your whole time at St. Pat's, now the boss of Sligo, were having a bit of a fight over your services, I believe.
Yeah, it wouldn't really be a fight between the two lads. It was more a case of I had a kind of an inner fight with myself. Because the reason being is because before Liam had got the job at St. Pat's, I had agreed to sign back for Shelburne with Alan Matthews. We had just been promoted from the first division. And I'd agreed to sign for the 2012 season with Shelburne. I hadn't signed anything, but I'd agreed. And it's I'd never really go back on my word on things like that, Jamie. And I actually I'll be honest, I was absolutely devastated when Liam Buckley got the job at Pat's, because it would have been I would have preferred to go there. Hope Alan doesn't mind me saying that now. I'm sure he agrees. But even when I did make the decision to stay on with Shelburne, there was an opportunity to sign in the summer. And Dean Kelly was with St. Pat's at the time and wasn't getting a look in there under Liam. And Alan Matthews wanted to sign Dean for Shelburne. So there was a possibility of a swap deal. And I remember it was very, very close. I remember being down in Druids Glen with Amanda and Kayla at the time. I don't think Ellie wasn't born. And I went out for a game of golf by myself because I was waiting for this call, whether or not this was going to happen or not in the summer. And I think Pats were in European action that time as well. As far as I can remember, they're playing Hanover that week. So as you can imagine, playing a prestigious game like that for the club and getting involved would have been great. I was really looking forward to it. And I remember I putted my last ball in the 18th hole and my phone went off. And it was John O'Brien. And John O'Brien was a very, very good friend of Liam Buckley. And he was club secretary of Sporting Fingal when Sporting Fingal was founded. And he was the one to break the news to me to say that the deal was off. Dean wanted to stay on and fight for his place at Pats during the European spell. And you can't blame him for that. And then Alan wouldn't let me go because he'd be stuck then himself if I was needed. So I think from then on, I think everybody knew it was the worst kept secret in the world when I signed for St. Pat's in 2013. But I remember when I did sign there, I signed the same day as Killian. And Killian, as you all know, is a fantastic player. Was a fantastic player for Pats, but he was a huge personality around the league at the time. And so he took all the pressure off my signing completely. And I was very, very happy with that. But I remember thinking to myself, are Pats going to like the signing of Conan Byrne? Didn't really play much at Shelburne in the 2012 Premier Division season. They hadn't really seen me then since the 2010 Premier Division season at Sporting Fingal. So I was a relatively unknown figure to St. Pat's fans when I signed. So I knew straight away that I would have had to hit the ground running at the club. And thankfully I did that. In pre-season, I scored a couple of goals. I remember scoring a free kick against Athlone in a pre-season friendly, wind assisted, mind you, from close enough to the halfway line. So that kind of helped. And the season started relatively okay. But then during the middle of the season, then a couple of goals went in and kicked on from there. So yeah, that's how I signed for St. Pat's.
I can confirm Conan Byrne is not a very good golfer, just so you know, and I'm probably worse. We did have a game whenever it was, yes, and very enjoyable. But you always, when you talk about that phone call when it came in and when you got the news that it wasn't happening or whatever, like you always remember where you were when you get news that's either good news or bad news and stuff. So it's interesting that you're out on a golf course on your own because you just needed some space and time to clear your head. We'll talk through your time at Pats in loads of detail, and I'll have loads of questions to ask you and some from supporters as well, Conan. But in your own words, how would you sum up the 6 seasons as a Super Saint?
It'd be very hard to describe, Jamie. Like the memories that I have at St. Pat's will live with me forever. Now, I signed for St. Pat's, not a fan of the club. Didn't even know much history about the club. I had to figure that out myself. And I remember when I signed for Shelburne, I did some history because I think it's important as a footballer that you know the history of a football club. And I did the same then when I signed for St. Pat's. I'll be honest, I knew very little apart from the current setup and maybe the years previously where I played against them. But then when you go through the first couple of months and you get to meet the personalities around the club, and it grows on you. And then it shows the way when your family go to games and how they're treated. My mum and dad then went to every single one of my games home and away, and they never did that at any other club, be it before or after. They did go to the Fingal game, sorry, but then they had a vested interest in that. But in terms of UCD, Shelburne, Glenavon, I'd say they went to, you could count on two fingers how many games they went to. So they were very, very much kind of part of the family at St. Pat's. And I think that's important. It's not just what you do on a football pitch. It's what you do off it. And the welcoming that you received, whether you win, lose or draw, by the St. Pat's fans, it was absolutely incredible. I'll give you one little story about how you'd call it a family. I was back in 2014, 2015, 2016, I was going through my teaching qualifications. And I hadn't studied Irish since I left secondary school. And I needed to brush up on it big time to get in. So firstly, I needed to do an interview. And then obviously I had to go down to the Gaeltacht, had to write assignments. And Coleman Hanley, as you know, is a Gaelgore. But his father, Tom, was a former principal of the Jewish school. And he gave no end amount of time to me over the course of one summer, where I was out in his house constantly learning Irish. And it's the time that, like, he didn't have to do that, but he did it because, one, he's a good person, but two, because I was a St. Pat's player, and he wanted to help me out. And there's those type of, I don't know, incidents that will live long in the memory. So anytime that I'm in my profession now a couple of years, I wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for Tom. And I owe a debt of gratitude to him. And then, as we've talked about him loads of times, Pat O'Callaghan, another stalwart of the club. His son obviously was chairman at one time as well, Andrew. And it's just people like him, Jamie. I know there's, as you all know, there's countless others as well. And it's just very much a community club. And I tried to instill that at Sporting Fingal when I was community development manager, and I'd never sought anything like that apart from St. Pat's.
There's a lovely story, and one I didn't know actually, and I'm not sure if many of our listeners will know that story either. You'll be happy to know the Hanley's still very much heavily involved in St. Pat's, and always will be. Great people, great St. Pat's people too. So that's a nice story, Conan. And you mentioned you were going through your qualifications to become a teacher around that time. You were also going through the 2013 League of Ireland season, at the end of which your first season at the club, St. Pat's, would win the Premier Division, playing great football with great players. The battle with Dundalk, Stephen Kenny's first year in charge of Dundalk, St. Pat's finished top by 3 points. The Sligo game at Richmond Park that everybody remembers, the Greg Bulger goal, etc., title confirmed celebrations, etc., etc. How would you sum up 2013 and the league win in your first year at the club?
I've never played football like it, Jamie. In terms of just we knew exactly what we had to do when we went out, from the moment we went out onto the pitch. And you'd think that in training that we went through shape a lot and patterns and style of play and different things, but we didn't. We were that comfortable in possession of the ball that we knew our jobs. We knew exactly where we had to be. And it was just a wonderful time to be a footballer during those early years at Pats. Because 9 times out of 10 you were going out onto the pitch knowing that you were going to win. Especially in the 2013 season. 2014 didn't start off as well. We finished like a train. But 2013, yeah, it was just brilliant. And you can hear, even when you talk to other people now that played against us, they still refer to that team as probably one of the best they've played against. And yeah, you hear about Dundalk and Shamrock Rovers recently, but I felt that we played better football than those sides. Obviously, they're born winners, and they knew how to win games, and they were dogged and determined and brilliant footballers, footballing teams that had great tactics and technical ability and all that. But we just had something about us in our style of play, was something that I haven't seen in the league since. And Jamie, I was very, very lucky to be part of that. Because it wasn't a case where I'm putting myself up on a pedestal as being one of the top players on that side. I'm talking about that there was likes of Greg Bulger, there was Killian Brennan, John Russell, completely underrated as a footballer. There was Bisto up front. There was Chris Forrester, who was absolutely unplayable at times. But the back four, I don't think got enough credit for how they were and how they built up from the back. Bermo, Jer, Kenny, Connor Kenna, another underrated player at Pats, and how we played as a team. And as I said, how we knew where we were. And like my job, and I don't understand why people don't do this, as players don't do this more regularly. My job was to keep my heels to the touchline when Jer had it and put balls into the box and be on the end of crosses from the other side. 3 jobs, and that was it. And if I did that right, well, then I stayed in the team. So if I decided to drift inside and try and beat 3 or 4 players, which probably wouldn't happen, I wouldn't be playing. So I was always told to do a job, and I did it to the best of my ability. And thankfully, Liam played me most weeks for that. I don't think players listen to their managers enough these days in terms of what they're being asked to do. And I think if you did, and if you have obviously you need a bit of quality to be able to do it, that you'll be in his plans. So thankfully, I was part of those plans for the years that Liam was there, and we had tremendous success. And obviously, 2013 was huge, as well as 2014.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about Liam Buckley later on, Conan, but the fact that you brought him up, I may as well ask you about him now. And he was at Richmond last week with Sligo, not the result he would have wanted, but myself and Jer, who were doing the LOI TV, had a good chat with himself and Dave Campbell beforehand, and listened to Liam's interviews after most matches. He still talks about wanting his teams to link it in and get crosses into the box. And obviously his Sligo team had a great win the other night against Bows and stuff. And just, you reminded me there about what he wanted from you, and he was very direct and clear with his instructions for you and for all of the players, and for you in particular, it was get crosses in the box for the likes of Christy Fagan and others, and when the ball is on the other side, be in at the back post to score. And it's fair to say you did both of those quite well as a Pats player over the years.
Yeah, and like I was a centre forward growing up, so I only moved out wide when I was at UCD. So so I only spent a couple of years as a winger. But yeah, Liam was huge because don't want to be disrespectful to other managers, but they didn't play the same way that Liam did. So as a wide man, the ball was on the ground. But any other manager as a wide man, the ball was more than often than not in the air. And as everybody knows, that's not my greatest strength when the ball is up in the air. So when the ball was on the deck and I was in a position to take it forward, I always did that. I always was very, very direct. I very rarely tried to play back. And also as well, I remember Killian Brennan telling me this actually one time, because I was only a wide man. He was for a couple of years, but he was a wide man when he was at Bows, when they were very, very successful. And he always used to tell me, like, when you drive inside a fullback, they can't catch you. And he's 100% right, because it's very, very unlikely that if you go tearing as full pace inside a fullback, that they're going to make a tackle on you. Obviously, you could run into traffic, but more often than that, you can lay it off and receive the ball somewhere else. But thankfully, my crossing was probably my best asset. And I was able to kind of get a half a yard and whip a ball in with pace. And that's something that a lot of players struggle with in getting that half a yard and putting a good ball into the box. They mightn't have the strength to whip the ball around as much. Jer is very good at it as well. But thankfully, I was good at that. And like, there was a lot of things I was very bad at. But thankfully, the most important things was the crossing and my directness. And as I said, like, Liam was very, very good to me throughout my whole career, and he was an unbelievable manager to work under.
Yeah, and I think that word is so important, the word manager. And, man management is something in football that at different clubs varies. Different managers vary how they do things. I know at the moment, Alan and Stephen O'Donnell, would be known among the St. Pat squad as very good man managers. Liam would have been the same with your team, with you in particular. You had him at Sporting Fingal. You had him at St. Pat's for all those years. And there was just such a special relationship between Liam and his players. I was lucky enough to see it towards the back end from kind of 2015 on when I joined the club, worked in the academy, and was lucky enough to be around the team a little bit to see his train and play and stuff. But that Liam kind of treating the person first before the player, and then how that was repaid to him on the pitch by you guys, is something I think should be mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. Like my relationship with Liam started way back, obviously, when you said back in late 2007, when he had signed for, started managing Sporting Fingal. And again, I hadn't really heard about this club that was setting up in my own local area. And anyway, received a call from Liam, decided to meet him at a hotel up at the airport, and talked a little bit, not about things. He said he never really saw me with a critical eye. So he just heard about me at UCD. And then when I was about to sign my contract, obviously the negotiations, I invited him out to my house. And we just chatted in my front room. And funnily enough, actually, I strategically placed some former like trophies around that sitting room, like player of the years or goal. I remember there was one, my local club, Sword Rovers at the time, gave me a plaque. They'd kept all my goals, my record of goals from under 8s to under 16, and it was 310 goals in those years, and they gave me a plaque with it on it. And I remember I put that on top of the mantelpiece and said, look, at least he knows I can score some goals.
Of course.
So yeah, he remembers that well. Actually, I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago and he brought that up. So yeah, like that's where it started. And obviously I played a lot of games. I only missed one game for Fingal, a Leinster Senior Cup game against Shelbourne. I played every other game for Liam. So I knew going to Pats that I had a great chance to play, even though Pats were finished second in the league the previous year. They had a bit of a few players had left to go to Shamrock Rovers. That Trevor Crowley, Liam Buckley incident that we all know about. So some of the players had left. So I had a good opportunity to start, and Liam gave me that opportunity straight away. So I grabbed it with both hands, and yeah, it went. The relationship's still going today.
Sunday, the 2nd of November 2014 at the Aviva Stadium is a date that will be in St. Pat's folklore, history, memory for life. It's the day that the club ended a 53-year wait to win the FAI Cup. Again, a 2-0 victory over Derry City, both goals scored by Christy Fagan. I was working that day, Conan, for 98 FM up in the press box, and when Christy Fagan scored the second goal in like injury time just to seal the win, because at 1-0 in a cup final you're always liable to concede a goal, and all of a sudden it goes to extra time, etc., etc. You know, the tears on the pitch, the Brian Kerr TV commentary when everyone knew he was a Pats man, but they certainly knew he was a Pats man when he reacted to that second goal, etc. The emotion of it all, like, what stands out for you most about that day?
Christy. I'll remember that day for the rest of my life, obviously, because it was 53 years that the club had gone without an FAI Cup. And that's why probably it means the most, that medal means the most to me than any other, would be that FAI Cup success, because the heartache that I had on Pat's fans. But you're asking me what do I remember most? It's Christy's 2 goals. And it feels as if, because he left so quietly from not just Pats but from League of Ireland, it feels like, I don't know, he didn't get the send off that he deserved as a footballer. Christy was absolutely magnificent as a footballer, like an absolute dream to play alongside. The 2014 season, he was unplayable. He was absolutely brilliant. And we had a great understanding, the two of us. Obviously, I contributed to some of his goals. He contributed to some of mine that season as well. He probably didn't play as much in 2013 as he would have liked, but Bisto was doing really, really well up top. And I was so happy for Christy when he got the 2 goals, because he fully deserved it given the season that he had. And he's down in history now forever among Pat's fans for those 2 goals, and he's revered by everybody, and including the players that played with him that day. I don't think that if you ask anybody from that team who the best player they played with that season, every single one of them is going to say Christy Fagan, because he was he was brilliant. But I sat beside him in the dressing room as well, Jamie, and there was no airs or graces with him. He was just a really, really top person as well, which is so important. And I think that's why the relationship was so strong between us, because it's funny, like before games, we would never have to talk about the upcoming game. We'd always talk about our kids, or talk about how he's getting on in his taxi, or he's asking me about my education, and it was always kind of, we weren't really talking. We never really talked about football. And I think that's why the relationship on the pitch was so strong, because we had that telepathic relationship on the pitch. And he was just a brilliant fella.
Yeah, he's actually either just finished or just finishing a degree in physiotherapy at UCD, and he's definitely someone who we look to speak to on the podcast at some stage as well. And good
luck to that. He hates all that.
I know. I've been trying over the years to convince him, because of course he got that serious injury in training, which effectively kind of ended his career and stuff. And as you said, he probably, St. Pat's people certainly know just how good he was and the type of person that he was. But I think the point you make about, maybe it'd be interesting to just hear his story and his career and how he did it, because he was a top goal scorer and a really nice guy as well. So we'll definitely try and chat to him at some stage. They say in football, Conan, we play it for the winning moments, and you have a lot more losing moments than winning moments, which makes the winning moments so much sweeter. From the final whistle at the Aviva on that day in November 2014 to when you fell into bed in the hotel that night, just take me through maybe some of the standout bits from, like, on the pitch lifting the trophy, to in the dressing room and in that private moment, to being back at the hotel and just the supporters. And I think there was lots of tears and lots of drink taking, which is fully understandable, and just the perfect few hours after the perfect win.
Yeah, my memory is of that. My memory is always hazy anyway. I can't really remember much stuff about that, the afters of that. I just remember being in the dressing room after the game, and I did a big, like, there was always champagne all over the floor, and I did a big slide into the cup. And yeah, just I remember, like, going around the Aviva afterwards, and just seeing all the supporters and what it meant to them. I remember Liam giving the FAI Cup into the supporters as well, where he got into trouble from obviously the people that were looking after the cup, because he didn't get it back for a couple of minutes, which was obvious that was going to happen. But seeing all the tears, all the people crying. Remember when we won the league in 2013? Like, they were like, "Yeah, that's grand, like, but we want the FAI Cup more." And that was the resounding message that we were hearing from the fans, is that, yeah, the league, that's brilliant, that's fantastic, but we need the FAI Cup. So when we were able to bring it back to the Red Cow that night, the roar when you walked in, we had a little room to ourselves, actually, so we could get something to eat before we went into the main function room. So yeah, it was just a really wonderful experience. And then obviously the days after, going to McDowell's and Tabby's as well.
Tavies, I think Tavies, possibly.
Tavies, is it? Yeah. I used to always call it Tabby's.
Could be. You've been there more than me.
No, I've only been there once. And that was that night, yeah, or the following day. And yeah, I remember just having those wonderful moments. And look, like, yeah, it's great to experience with the fans, but we won it as players as well, and it was nice to have those moments within the group as well, which was really nice too. So I'm sorry I can't give you any more stories, but and it's not even the drink, because I wasn't not a big drinker. It's just that my memory is terrible.
No, that's totally fine. I think unless you work, maybe as a doctor or a nurse, or you work in the emergency services or whatever, there's not too many industries where something that you do will make grown adults cry in front of you and tell you how much what you've done has meant to them and that sort of stuff. But sport has a way of that happening. And in the Red Cow that night, and I know, you were probably chatting to millions of people and stuff, but just the stories you hear back, and I wasn't there, but the stories you hear back of just the emotion of it all and what it meant to the people, the supporters and stuff. And you spoke very well earlier on about St. Pat's being a family club and an inclusive club. And that was probably an example of just what a sporting match and a sporting moment, which is your profession, can mean to thousands of people.
Yeah, like, look, I spoke to so many people that night that it was unbelievable. And yeah, as I said to you, I joined the club, not a fan of the club, so I can only imagine what it would. And it's still my greatest win would have been my finest medal is that FAI Cup one. So I can only imagine how the likes of Ger O'Brien, Ian Birmingham, Brendan Clark, those lads would have felt being on the terraces as children, probably been to Lansdowne, Andy Aviva, obviously the 2012 memories as well, not too distant in their minds after losing to Derry City, ironically as well. So I can only imagine what those lads felt like, and the experience of that being local lads winning FAI Cup. I suppose I did win it with Fingal as a local fella, but you know what I mean in terms of St. Pat's and how long they waited for that elusive FAI Cup success. And you see, as I said to you just there a couple of minutes ago, I don't want to be repeating myself, but when we won the league, people were like, yeah, that's great, but we want the FAI Cup. And to deliver that a year later was huge. And I suppose I can't not mention Keith Fahey in that too, because Keith was instrumental for us that season. He played absolutely superb in that number 8 role. Himself and Killian Brennan pushed on, and Greg Bulger mopping everything up. And Keith was magnificent in that final as well.
We've mentioned lots of your teammates there. A young Chris Forrester could be added to the list as well, and you know, he was fantastic in that team, playing on the left wing for a lot of it as well, and scoring great goals and stuff before he went off to the UK, and now he's back and scoring great goals again for St. Pat's from a more central role. But you know, some of the players, Conan, and we spoke about the football played and you know, the influence of the manager and the coaching staff and stuff, but it was the players ultimately on the pitch playing the football, and like the quality of teammate you had across that time, particularly kind of 13, 14, 15, you know, when there was the league, the FAI Cup, and then the first of the league cups came in Europe every year at that time as well. Like, what type of things come to mind when I ask you just to talk about the quality of both the people and the players that you were able to call your teammates?
They probably thought I was the worst player in history because they were so good.
Very well said, sir.
Like and as a player, like, and I've said this a few times, like I was at every club I've been to, I was probably only one of maybe 2 or 3 people that had never received an international cap. So when people think back to their youth, they would never have seen me anywhere because I was playing a worse standard of football than they were. I never was across the water, went on trial across the water. I never got signed by anybody across the water. So I was a relatively unknown when I went into UCD. So then when I started doing well, I'm sure people were like, who is this fella? And that kind of, I felt I was always trying to prove myself anyway, right through my career, because I felt like that myself. I was like, they don't know me. I need to do better than them. I need to stay out in the training ground and practice and practice and practice. And that's what I did. But to play with those players that I looked up to as a child, you know, seeing them play getting international appearances, even seeing them playing for the likes of Cherry Orchard, St. Kevin's, Belvedere, and I was miles away from that. So to play with them in the pitch, I kind of always felt that I had to raise my game at every single time I walked out onto that pitch, and that's including the training pitch. Like, and there's plenty of time, like I've been called touch tackle because my touch, which isn't the worst in the world, it was nowhere near what they were. And like, I'd take a touch, and obviously that's why they're called touch tackle. Take a touch, but my touch leads me into another tackle. So it was just a privilege to play with those players. Like even, I think everyone knows how good Killian is, but I really don't think he was incredible. If I always feel that if it wasn't for his, I wouldn't say probably would be his attitude, and he could have made it to the very, very top. He was incredible. We all know how good Greg Bulger is. Sure, look at everywhere he goes, he wins something. I'd be no surprise to see him win something this year. But I hope it's not a league, but whether he wins something. And then, like as you said, Chris Forrester is a joke. Again, I was training one time and he did something on me, and I couldn't find him or the ball. For about 5 seconds afterwards, he was gone, and I, honest to God, was looking around me trying to figure out where he was gone. So the players were incredible. It was a joy to play with, and I always felt as if I was yeah, I wouldn't say not good enough, but very happy to be playing amongst them.
That's a very honest thing to say, Conan Byrne, because I'm sure they'll all express just how good you were for the team as well. And, you know, the number of goals and assists you got says just that. On this day, 5 years ago, it was St. Pat's in action against Jeunesse Esch from Luxembourg in the Europa League, Conan, in 2016. The following leg then was against the team from Belarus. I was lucky enough to be involved on the coaching staff with Liam for those couple of games. And weird to think that it's 5 years today that Luxembourg team that we played, Jeunesse Esch, were playing. Just time flies, of course. St. Pat's, of course, haven't been in Europe for the last little while and hopefully will be next year. You played lots of European games for the club. Is there different bits and bobs, whether they be opposition games, home games at Richmond in front of the fans, maybe some away trips that come to mind when you think back about your European adventures?
Just on that, is that the away game or was it the home game?
The home game.
Okay, because the away game, thankfully it was down as the striker. I can't remember his name, but I actually have scored more own goals in Europe, Jamie, than I have scored in the opposition net. I scored an OG against Legia in Tala in the 5-0 defeat, and I scored an OG in that game with the Jeunesse Esch in Luxembourg when I think it was Darren Dennehy scored.
Yes, I think from a Keith, could have been a Keith Tracy
ball into the box, wasn't it? It was. I don't think it was. I think it was a free kick. But yeah, a funny story on that trip actually, the Jeunesse Esch, is that as I spoke about earlier, my mother and father went to every game home and away, and that included Europe. And I remember before the game, there was the Pats fans up in the stadium in the stand, and my parents weren't there. I was like, that's strange, because I was only talking to them about 3 hours ago, and they were saying they're on their way. 20 minutes into the game, throw in down that side, just had a glance up, which you do the odd time. They weren't there. I was like, what's going on here? Anyway, at halftime, came back out halftime, the second half, and then they were there. So I was like, oh, they must have got lost or whatever. And I was only found out after the game is that they were in a taxi on the way to the stadium, but the taxi man brought them to the wrong ground. And on the way back, on the way to the proper ground, the Jeunesse Esch ground, he went down a bus lane. But in Luxembourg, if you go down a bus lane, these barriers come up in the middle of the road if you're not a bus. And the barrier a little pole came right up through the taxi's car, right up through the middle of it, and bounced my mum and dad around the back seat. And my dad's face was black and blue. He had sunglasses on, so at the time, but he was absolutely black and blue. But because they wanted to get to the game so much, they just forgot about everything and just left the scene and got to the game. So they could have made an absolute fortune out of this if they had stayed put. But they wanted to get to the game so much that they just left it, and off they went to the game. So very lucky to be alive by all accounts. The car was mangled with this pole going right up through it, which was a story that I was told after the game.
God, I'm laughing, but I shouldn't. I didn't realise it was that serious. My God. And their love of you and their love of St. Pat's meant that they just left all that and off they went to the game. And the away leg, which was in what date have we got here? The 5th of July was the away leg. So that was a 2-1 win for Jeunesse Esch. You're right, Darren Dennehy scored, but that away goal got St. Pat's through because the home leg, which was 28th of June 2016, Christy Fagan, the aforementioned, got the goal in the 10th minute. You can check that out on the St. Pat's socials. We'll be popping it up tonight for one of those on this day posts. So that was one in 2016. If we talk about home European memories, and I know at times in the latter rounds, games had to go to the RDS or games had to go to Tala due to the UEFA restrictions on seats and standing and all that jazz. But in the earlier rounds in Richmond, like there were just incredible electric atmospheres to play in, and I'm sure you quite enjoyed them.
Yeah, there was one regret though, Jamie, from my time at the club. I wasn't part of the 2012 magnificent run that they went on. And 2013 we were beaten by Zalgiris. And we should never have lost that one. We drew 2-2 away from home. Myself and Jer, who had we had the worst game in history in that first half over in Lithuania. Like we were so bad. And thankfully in the second half, I scored to make it 1-1. It was my first and only European goal in that game. And they scored to make it 2-1. And then Jer scored an 89th minute goal. And 2 away goals against that side we were expecting to win. And unfortunately, we couldn't hold on. I think, I can't remember what score, but 2-1, I think they beat us at home. Not 100% sure on that. And that was a terrible disappointment. But I just, and then obviously Legia away from home was probably the best performance that I've ever been involved in Pat's. Absolutely remarkable, winning 1-0, gone into injury time. Superb defensive performance, because that's what people talked about us, that we weren't very great defensively, but we conceded, I think, 18 goals into 2013 league winning season. And then in 2014, then that game, we were absolutely incredible. And I remember Ken O'Man, he gave the ball away in the 94th minute. And what was his name? He was, it's on the tip of my tongue anyway. He scored and made it 1-1 in the 94th minute. And I remember Ken locked himself in his room that evening, and he was refused to come down. He was very, very upset over it. He blamed himself for the draw, letting the lads down. And Liam had to go up into his room to try and just to talk to him. He was really inconsolable after that game. But yeah, going back to the home performances, like there was always that Richmond roar that you remember, but we never gave. Like the team that I was involved in, we never gave them that roar on too many of an occasion, because we were always beaten. In that game, the only game that I got through with Pats was when I Shesh, and that was the away leg in the second leg. So that was a bit disappointing. Probably the only disappointment that I'd have at the club, that we didn't go on a little run in Europe.
Conan, how are you for time, sir? Because I told you we'd do till about 10 to 5, and I have another 3 questions, and you're running off to a game. Can we keep going, or do we need to wrap it up?
Jamie, this is about Pats. I'll be here all night if you want me to.
Oh, well, that's all right. That's good. I just wanted to make sure you didn't have to collect the kids or go and clean your boots or do something like that, because you've no kit man anymore, so you have to do that all yourself.
I know, yeah. Well, I always kind of looked after my own boots, but looking at and me gear, it's actually not bad up in River Valley. Actually, I'm just thinking about it now. They have it all left out for you, so it's not too bad. Yeah,
I miss what's the word I'm looking for now? I misjudged maybe how people like you will be treated now in your amateur career, because of course loads of amateur clubs doing great work, and they even have a kit man. Only since Conan signed. I'm only joking. Conan Byrne, you are a scorer of great goals, and you've scored lots of them for St. Pat's across the 6 years. We don't have time to talk about all of them because there's too many, but you're going to pick a couple for us that stick out in your mind most across your time. And I have a funny feeling Dalymount Park might feature in one of them, and there's a couple of others that you want to remember as well.
Yeah, but Dalymount Park is probably the one that everyone will remember, because it was my 100th goal in League of Ireland football. It's my first of the season. It was my first ever goal at Dalymount. Considering I played there for 10, 12, 13 years previously, never scored. And yeah, I remember, like, I tried it a couple of weeks previously against Gary Rogers, and I was so close. I don't know how he got his little fingertip and put it over the bar with Oriel. So it was always in my mind to do it. I always looked at the keeper, Jamie, from when I was 12, 13 years old. I'd always look to see where the keeper was. I actually tried another one there on Friday night in the game, and just clipped the top of the bar and went over. So I'd always try it. But in that game, I don't know what made me do it, because Dalymount Park is the biggest pitch in the world. It's absolutely huge, and I'm kicking it uphill as well. And I will never strike a ball like it again. Don't care what anyone says, because it's coming across me as well, which is difficult in itself. And I just caught it so sweetly, and as soon as I hit it, I knew it was in, and I'd started running. And I'm bringing my parents back into this again, but my mother and father, I said, went to every single game. They missed that one. They were in London at the time, and that night my dad broke his femur, falling down the stairs. Now, put on record, my dad doesn't drink, but he's very, very clumsy, and he put his hand on the banister, but there was no banister on those set of stairs, and he just tumbled down the stairs and landed on a heap and broke his femur. But I'll always remember that weekend. But I think the best goal I ever scored probably was a couple of weeks later. Like people say, oh, halfway line, you just hit it, and well, there was a bit of skill in it, but to a relative case, it's how hard you can hit a ball. But I was up in McGinn Park playing against Derry City a couple of weeks later, and I think that was my best goal, where Lee Desmond done great at the corner of the box, laid it back to me, and I took one touch and I just chipped it over from the edge of the box right over Ger Doherty's head into the far corner. And technically that is a very, very difficult skill, and surprised myself when it went in. So I definitely put that up there. I scored a free kick down in Cork, which I was delighted with as well, because it was on free kicks when Killian wasn't taken over. And yeah, so there was a couple of goals, that I would have scored, but I was always happy with whatever came my way.
Now, Conan Byrne, I know you love a stat, and I have to thank John Owens, aka Dodge, for this. You have scored 77 goals in 251 games, which we mentioned at the start. You've also scored in the FAI Cup, the League Cup, the Europa League, the Setanta Cup, the Leinster Senior Cup, and the League of Ireland. You've never scored less than 7 in a season. Your highest was 18 in 2014. So I do know you enjoy a stat, because I love your podcast for many reasons. One of them is your little nuggets of information and stats that you have. So I thought I'd throw that in, and thanks to Dodge for giving us the ultimate lowdown of your goal scoring history. Yeah,
that's nice. I never thought of that one, actually. Pity I didn't score in the President's Cup, though. See, I'll still mention that one.
Yeah, well, it's not on the list Dodge sent me, and Dodge doesn't miss those things. So no, you didn't score in the President's
Cup. No, I definitely didn't. I'll tell you that. I only played in one, and we won it, actually. Keith Fahey's wonder strike against Sligo in 2014. So it's a nice stat to look back on, to be able to say that I scored in most cup competitions, and I'm very, very proud. Look, Jim, I'm very, very proud of the career that I had at St. Pat's. It's and people say, "Oh, would you like to do it all again?" I was like, absolutely no way would I like to do it all again, because there's no way I would have the career that I had if I did it again.
Moving towards the end of your St. Pat's career, Conan, and there was a League Cup in 2015, a League Cup in 2016, and then in the last couple of seasons, the team struggled a little bit in 2017. It almost went to the wire. That was the year where 3 teams went down. I think St. Pat's ended at 4 points off what would have been 9th place, but it could have been a lot worse, and there was a little bit of pressure on and stuff. Can you put your finger on why for the last couple of seasons things just dropped off, having been so successful in the previous 3 or 4?
We lost some players, Jamie. Christie got injured. Chris Forrester left. So there's 2 of our front 3 gone. Greg had left. Kenny had left. These players are irreplaceable. The players that came in were all very, very talented. Lee came in, obviously, Lee Desmond, and is doing really, really well. We'd lost Sean Hoare as well, Jamie McGrath. So these players had come in around 2014, 2015, did really, really well for a season or 2, and then went on, and you can't begrudge them for that. So I do think that the standard of player, and no disrespect to them, because I still be pals with most of them, but they wouldn't be as good as the team that we had in 2013 and 2014, and it's just the way football goes. We were very lucky to escape relegation that season. But having said that, I've never for 1 second felt that we were going to go down. Even heading up to Buncrana to McGinn Park on that last game of the season, where Killian scored to make it 1-0, put us 1-0 up. We drew the game eventually. Never ever felt that we were going to go down. Not saying that we were too good to go down, but just never felt as if that we were going to. So yeah, it was tough those last few years at the club, because I had only been used to success at St. Pat's, but it still didn't take my love away, and never wanted to leave, unfortunately, when I did.
Now, Conan, I don't want any tears, please, if possible, on the podcast, but tell me about the night before your last match for St. Pat's, which was at the end of the 2018 season.
Yeah, I don't know if I've spoken about this too often, but I remember we were training in Richmond Park the night before the Derry game, the last day of the season, and I wanted to know before that last game whether or not I was going to be playing. And look, Ger was caretaker, and he was kind of giving me kind of little lowdown, saying, "Look, the next manager's coming in is going to be going full time morning training." So I knew straight away then that that would be my last season, and probably my last game at the club. But I wanted it to be finalised before that game, just for my own self. And when Harry was brought in as manager, unbelievable man Harry is, really, really top drawer. And in fairness to him, like I went to him after and I said, look, Harry, I just want confirmation that my time at the club has come to an end. And he was like, no, we're going to have to do something. We can you take a career break from school? I was like, no, I'm not willing to do that. I might see if we can do afternoon training again. I was like, no chance, Harry. That's been done the last couple of years. I felt terrible. I mean, the only person that afternoon training is done for is for myself, and plus maybe some of the one or two of the younger college lads. That's it. Like, you're not going afternoon football for me. I'm not doing that on the lads again. And then he was just looking at me, and I was looking at him. I was like, that's it then, Harry, is it? And he was like, will we call it then? I said, yeah, we'll call it then. And he gave me the biggest hug that anybody in football has ever given me. And he called me an expletive anyway, saying that he wanted to work with me. And from that, I can tell you exactly where I was. I was on the 18-yard box of the I'll call it the old shed end now. And from there to when I walked down the steps, I was gone. With tears in my eyes, I was but thankfully everybody had gone inside by this stage, because I was talking to him after training. There was tears in my eyes. Nobody had seen me. So when I went down, I kind of got back to myself. I was okay and went down the steps. But I knew that if anybody had come and said, oh, what happened, or gave me a hug or whatever, I would be gone. Absolutely. But thankfully, up steps Brendan Clark to absolutely slate me over my Barnet or something. And it made it all look. I was grand then. It was fine. Everyone just laughing at me. So then that last game, it's nice to finish on such a high, because I've always said that assists were my number one priority as a footballer. Goals were a bonus. And to finish off my Pat's career with four out of 5 assists was really, really nice. And we won the game quite convincingly, and the send-off that I got when I was substituted for Joe Manley, I think, with about 15 minutes to go, was something that will live with me for the rest of my life. Yeah,
I saw you and Harry having the hug. It was just in front of the home dugout, wasn't it, at Richmond, when you were having that conversation?
Yeah, heading down towards the...
Yeah, I used to come to train the day before to do some interviews with the manager and a player and stuff, as I still do now. But back then it was the afternoon training, as you mentioned, and the club were going back to train in the mornings and stuff. But I wasn't aware of after that you went and had that moment on your own before you went back down to the changing rooms to get your bag and have a shower and that and head off. But I suppose that clearly shows just your connection and your feelings to the club, that you were literally, tears in your eyes standing on the pitch when you knew that was it. You trained for the last time and you were about to play your last game.
Yeah, I didn't want to leave. I really didn't want to leave, but I knew that I had to, like, for to benefit the club going forward, because they were going full-time morning training and everything that's associated with that. It's obviously for recovery, and it's just, even for signing players, it's a great tool to have, to be able to say, full-time morning training. New facility as well that they were going to in Ballyuster. And
yes, Ballyuster, correct.
Yeah, and so it was great for the club going forward. And it was just I'm not going to say it was a pity that I started my teaching career, but because it's not. I love my teaching career, and I'm absolutely blessed to have it now that I'm retired. But it was just time to move on.
Last two, Co, your relationship with the people in the club in general, whether that be the people that work there, your former teammates who are still here, the likes of Lee Desmond is still here, Jamie Lennon, Burmo, Forrester, Barry Murphy, to name a few. There's lots of new players as well, of course, and of course the supporters, the volunteers. You mentioned, the Hanleys, and you mentioned Pat O'Callaghan earlier on as well. And anytime anything is mentioned about Conan Byrne on the social media channels or in conversations, people's eyes light up and they just love you. And I know you love them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's and I haven't, like, obviously COVID has hit, and I haven't been able to get across to the games as much as I would have liked. As I said, I was able to say it when I retired, that St. Pat's was my club, and it will be. Because, as I said, when I signed, I'm sure a lot of faces came up going, why are we signing this fella? He's done nothing. Like, we came second in the league. We need players here that will come on and push us on. And they didn't think like that, really. Like, they got behind me straight away. Obviously the 4 goals in Tala really, really helped in that kind of I don't know, that association between the fans and myself. And yeah, it was just a wonderful, wonderful time. And that, like even my kids, like they have their Pats jerseys with Byrne on the back, Byrne number 7, and yeah, they haven't gone. They consider themselves Pats fans as well.
And you're now a Pats fan too, Conan Byrne, and the team is doing really well. I said you'll be with us soon for LOI TV with myself and Jer for one of the live games. You'll get you suited and booted for that on the side of the pitch in Richmond. But have you enjoyed watching the team this year? And I know even, I suppose, when you left Shells and you were playing in a different league up north, you were able to be more of an open Pats fan, if that makes sense. And the team are doing great. I mentioned some of your former teammates, and obviously there's lots of new players as well who you know personally, others that you might not know too much. You clearly know Alan and Stephen O'Donnell quite well and whatever. And the team top of the pile at the moment level with Shamrock Rovers and Sligo. So exciting to be a Saints fan now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's why I was so surprised last week with Bows going, oh, yeah, Dublin's red and black. Will you go out of that? You aren't even nowhere near the top of the league. Dublin's red and white. But yeah, it's great to see, Jamie. Do you know, it's been a long time coming now. As I said, I've from those glory days of 2013, 2014, maybe if you want to put in 2015 as well. And it's great to see Pats back competing at that level. Like, yes, they've some, like I can only imagine what, like those some sloppy results before the break, and you can only imagine where we'd be if we had won those, you know. But it's great to see Chris Forrester back to his best. I know people are saying it all the time, but he's absolutely fantastic. Alfie Lewis has been a joy to watch as well. Hopefully he can stay on till the end of the season. And Ronan Coughlin too, scoring goals. Do you know what I like? The top three this year remind me of the 2013 top three, because there's goals coming from everywhere. It's not just one player scoring all the goals, and I think you need that to win a league. Shamrock Rovers did it last year, with the goals that they had spread out over their attacking players. So I think it's very, very important. And Matty Smith now, what is it? 3 goals in 4 games. Yeah, 3 goals in 4 games. He's really, really he's flying, and he had a wonderful season at Waterford last season. And yeah, it's all going well. I just hope that they push on now again and pick up that title at the end of the season.
Would be very, very nice indeed. Conan, lastly, you've got lots going on, even though you're retired as a professional footballer. You're, of course, working as a teacher, which you've spoken about. You've got a missus and 2 kids. You've got your family. You've also got your career now with River Valley too, and you've got your podcast and your media work and stuff. And you're only 35, so it's fair to say you'll be kept busy with all of those things, which I know you're still very, very passionate about. And yeah, the fact that your life as a pro footballer is over, there's lots more life to live, as they say, and lots more to do.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, I'll always stay involved in the league. I love it. Absolutely love it. I love the personalities around it. I love seeing the improvement in the league. It's been small, but I think that we're getting there slowly but surely. I just think that there's the atmosphere of League of Ireland grounds is different to any other game that I've ever been to anywhere in the world. And excuse me, yeah, just like I love working the leagues. I like going to underage football and seeing the players coming through. Like, obviously I'm going to mention Johnny Kenny and the amount of goals that he scored at underage football. It was only a matter of time. And I remember talking to Dave Campbell about him towards the end of last season. I was like, Dave, what is this fella? He scored like 22 goals in underage football last year. And he was like, yeah, he's got a bit of a chance, this lad, and look at him this season. So I like seeing how the underage systems work as well, and seeing what type of player will break through. So yeah, I'm a big fan of both the League of Ireland and the Women's National League as well. And yeah, I'd be a firm supporter of both.
Great stuff. Well, Conan Byrne, thanks a million for jumping on. We've chatted for just under an hour now, which shows just how much of a St. Pat story you had to tell. I hope the supporters watching and listening to us enjoyed it. Conan, that was episode 8 of Talking Saints. Every other episode has had at least 3 guests, and this one has just been Conan Byrne, because you're such a Pat sledge, and we've so much enjoyed listening to you for the last while, telling us about your time at Pat. So thanks a million, and we'll see you at Richmond really soon.
Absolutely, Jamie. Thanks for having me, mate.